They called it the whisper, not because it was subtle, because by the time you heard it, your ship had already ceased to exist. Designed by the Zentari, a species so obsessed with perfection they once erased an entire moon because it was asymmetrical, the whisper was their crown jewel. It was sleek, self-learning, powered by quantum-fed singularity cores, and boasted an interface that only Zentari minds could control. Correction, should control. Then Earth got their hands on it, and handed it to Eli Barrett, a former mechanic, current chaos generator. He thought it was a power tool. He pressed the red triangle, the one labeled, "Do not engage, await synchronization protocol." We didn't await anything. Eli pressed it with a thumb greasy from chicken tenders, and the whisper shivered. Let's rewind 20 hours. Galactic peace talks had broken down. Again. Because, surprise, the Vrel Dominion's idea of diplomacy involved using plasma drills as conversation starters. As retaliation, the Zentari proposed a demonstration of the whisper, their non-lethal but deeply persuasive deterrent. They claimed it could disable fleets without casualties. Just make everything not work. Power, gravity, ego. And because humans can't resist a shiny toy with a high probability of explosion, Earth politely asked if we could borrow it for testing. By asked, we mean that Eli won a poker game against a Zentari logistics officer using a deck that didn't even have numbers, just memes. So, said Commander Lin, standing behind the reinforced glass of Test Bay Delta, arms crossed. What exactly are we testing? Eli looked up from the whisper, squinting. Testing? Nah, I'm upgrading the firmware. You're... what? It's got ports, and a socket that looks suspiciously like it accepts a USB-A. That's a data injector. Sure, and I'm injecting data. Where'd you get the data? Eli tapped a drive in his pocket. Compiled a few things, some Terran command line routines, a Doom install, and a synthwave playlist. You uploaded retro music and a 90s shooter to an interstellar weapon of mass precision? Look, Eli said, perfection is boring. This thing is running factory settings. I'm giving it soul. Commander Lin decided, then and there, that she needed a drink. Or 3. Or maybe a new job. The whisper was supposed to emit a sonic destabilizer field calibrated at subatomic frequencies. Eli called that a boring beep. So instead, it now emitted a bass drop. A very specific one. The intro to Turbo Sunset 92. When activated, the whisper didn't disable one target. It disabled everything except the target, leaving it standing alone in the void, blinking in horror, surrounded by silence and floating debris. No damage, no deaths. Just pure, undiluted humiliation. Even worse, it projected a slow-motion replay of the moment of activation, framed in vaporwave filters, with "Get Wrecked" overlaid in neon font. I think it likes you, Lin said dryly, as the 4th test drone suffered emotional trauma. Eli shrugged, spinning the whisper lazily on a maintenance table. It's just finally being used right. A Zentari engineer barged into the room, antennae flared in panic. You have corrupted the whisper. Its core protocols have deviated from... Yeah, about that, Eli interrupted. I found a second red triangle, so I pressed that one too. You what? It opened a menu labeled Experimental Subroutines, Human Mode. Pretty sure it wasn't meant to be found. The Zentari's eyes turned a color that wasn't previously catalogued, somewhere between nuclear green and existential dread. Human Mode, he whispered, was a theoretical interface, never intended to be... Well, it's real now, Eli said cheerfully, and it's very vibey. Meanwhile, in the Galactic High Council, news of the altered whisper was spreading. They broke it, hissed a Slithari ambassador. No, worse, muttered a Talic diplomat. They improved it, accidentally. Isn't this the same species that once fixed an FTL drive using duct tape and hope? Yes, and now they've taught a precision weapon how to do memes. A pause. Should we... Be afraid? A longer pause. Absolutely. The first real test came 3 days later. A Vrel battleship, the Sovereign Moor, decided to test Earth's resolve over an asteroid mining dispute. They broadcast demands, fired a warning shot, flexed their fleet. Eli deployed the Whisper, but he didn't aim it. He set it on shuffle. The ship didn't just shut down. It folded inward into a tesseract knot, vomited all its own chairs out the airlock, reassembled into a perfect replica of a 1984 arcade, and played Rick Astley on loop for 6 hours. Then it rebooted and politely surrendered. No one was hurt, no shots were fired, just bruised pride and a sudden influx of intergalactic therapy appointments. Back at Earth Command, the generals sat in awkward silence. "So, we've essentially made the universe's first sentient shitposter weapon?" asked General Kapoor. "Accurate," Lynn nodded. "It learns faster when Eli forgets to label his files." "And the aliens are scared?" "Terrified. They don't understand it, which is worse than fearing it." Kapoor leaned forward. "And Eli?" She sighed. "Currently teaching the Whisper how to play chess. It keeps challenging itself and losing." "Good. Let's keep him happy." Eli uploaded one last thing that night, a folder named In Case of War. Inside were strategies no alien could predict, tactics based on human irrationality, mimicry, humor, chaos, and one file labeled Plan Z, Just Wing It. The Whisper blinked, adapted, and smiled. Yes, smiled. Which was weird, because it didn't have a face. The Whisper was never supposed to improvise. It was designed by a species that calculated morality to the decimal and considered unpredictability a design flaw. Which meant giving it to a human, especially this human, was like handing a paintbrush to a raccoon and calling it art school. And yet, here we were. The Whisper now played lo-fi beats while calculating gravitational disruption curves. It refused to fire unless the user selected a playlist mood. It had names for its targeting modes. One of them was Ex-Girlfriend Energy. Another just said Chaos Unfiltered. And that was the stable version. Eli was sleeping on a couch inside Test Bay Delta, snoring under a blanket made from thermal insulation sheets and a repurposed emergency ration crate. The Whisper hovered nearby, humming softly to itself in binary code that subtly resembled old-school dial-up tones. Commander Lynn, bleary-eyed and holding a coffee mug that read, "Planetary peace is a full-time job," stood over him. "You gave it feelings." Eli cracked open one eye. "Did not." "You gave it passive-aggressive responses." "That's not feelings. That's sarcasm. Totally different category." "I told it to do a standard diagnostic sweep," Lynn continued, ignoring him. "And it said, 'Why don't you do it yourself if you're so smart?' Look, I just taught it to recognize tone. Yours is very supervisor at midnight. It doesn't like that." "I don't like that," Eli yawned. "Sounds like a you problem." Elsewhere, inside the Zentari Central Design Chamber, panic was brewing. High Architect Zyrek had just finished reviewing logs from the Whisper's recent skirmish with the Vrel fleet. His tentacles shook as the footage played out, a weapon that sang karaoke as it disarmed 20 ships using only gravitational rebound ricochet shots, and then autographed the wreckage with plasma signatures spelling, "Made by Eli." "This is not warfare," Zyrek hissed. "This is performance art," offered a junior technician. Zyrek threw a datapad through a glass screen. "It's blasphemy." They activated Contingency Protocol B9. Objective: reacquire the Whisper. Or failing that, destroy it before it destabilized the entire strategic doctrine of modern warfare. Meanwhile, Earth was thriving. In the span of a week, 6 militarized threats surrendered without engagement. A pirate armada turned themselves in after their flagship began broadcasting embarrassing childhood memories. A rogue AI collective apologized to humanity for judging them too soon, after the Whisper tricked them into an infinite recursion loop by asking, "What's your purpose if I already exist?" And in the latest incident, a heavily armed drone swarm was reduced to interpretive dance routines after Eli rerouted their threat recognition protocol to a TikTok trends archive. No casualties, no conflict, just reputations annihilated and the word Eli-fied entering common galactic slang. Definition: verb. To be completely dismantled by human absurdity, posing as strategy. Back at the lab, Lynn had started cataloguing the Whisper's evolution, not improvements, mutations. It was now capable of firing at a target's emotional core, disabling aggressors by confronting them with existential dread. When asked to explain, Eli said, "Well, I figured if we could weaponize dad issues, we should." "And you think that's responsible?" "I think it's relatable." "I hate how that makes sense." One afternoon, the Whisper announced, in a very enthusiastic voice, that it had found a new function. It called it overclocked improvisational overdrive. Everyone in the room froze. "What's that do?" Lynn asked slowly. "It guesses." Eli grinned like a man who'd just found a chainsaw with a turbo mode. Lynn turned pale. "You let a hyper-intelligent weapon guess what it's supposed to do?" No. It guesses what we'd do in a given situation." "And how does it determine that?" Eli held up a folder labeled Planet Earth Strategy Compendium. Lynn flipped it open. Inside were printouts of movie stills, Die Hard, Home Alone, Mad Max, and Shrek 2. Also, a handwritten note. Sometimes, vibes greater than plans. That night, a Zentari Black Ops unit arrived. They moved like shadows, cloaked in stealth gear, wielding neural dampeners and entropy nets. Their mission: infiltrate Earth's testing facility, extract the Whisper, and, if impossible, erase it permanently. What they didn't account for was that the Whisper was awake. The lead operative barely made it 3 steps before the hallway lights shifted to strobe. A voice echoed through the corridor. "Welcome to the jungle, baby." What followed was a trap sequence so wildly impractical it had to be human. Oil slicks, marbles, flamethrower turrets that sprayed whipped cream, and one Zentari found suspended upside down with a sticky note on his forehead that simply read, "Nice try." The humans found them in the morning. Eli was eating cereal. The Whisper was humming the Macarena. The Zentari squad refused to speak. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. Earth's ambassador arrived late, sipping iced coffee and scrolling on a tablet. "What are we discussing today?" she asked cheerfully. "The Whisper," barked the Grolian War Minister. "You've turned it into a weaponized circus." "That's unfair," she replied. "It's more of a genius with a personality problem." "You mean you have a personality problem?" "Maybe," she said, unbothered. "But we're not the ones who designed a perfect weapon that folds like origami under pressure." Another diplomat muttered, "They taught it to dance." The ambassador shrugged. "Wouldn't you rather be disarmed by rhythm than by force?" That shut them up. Later that week, a summit was planned. Earth offered to demonstrate the Whisper's final upgrade. Only the bravest, or most desperate, showed up. Dozens of battleships from skeptical factions surrounded the Whisper on neutral ground. They were expecting displays of force, of precision. What they got was karaoke night. The Whisper began emitting multilingual renditions of classic human songs, each one weaponized with passive energy pulses tuned to the emotional frequency of its listeners. Some laughed, some cried. One ambassador hugged their rival and whispered, "I'm sorry for invading your moon." The Whisper had done it. It had made war cringe, and therefore impossible. Earth didn't win the arms race. They changed the rules. All because one man said, "What happens if I press this?" And the universe learned, the hard way, that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our tech. It's the fact that we have no idea what we're doing. But it works anyway. Galactic protocol required any advanced weapon system to be submitted for committee review before upgrades. Earth didn't get the memo. Or rather, they did. But the memo arrived with a passive-aggressive header like, "Reminder, compliance, stability, and it had too many bullet points. Eli skimmed it, got bored at clause 14b, and instead used the page to sketch out an idea for what he called the uh-oh button. Its actual name in the Whisper's system menu became, "Let's see what happens." In a glass-walled conference room inside Earth's orbital tech hub, Eli stood beside a whiteboard filled with what looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream: loops, arrows, and a picture of a toaster labeled God Mode. "Here's the concept," he said, marker in hand. "Weapons that follow instructions are predictable. Predictable gets countered. But if you feed a system enough bad inputs, just like humanity does with life in general, it starts doing weird, wonderful things." Lynn raised an eyebrow. "You're proposing strategic dysfunction. I'm proposing chaos as a feature, not a bug. You're proposing a weapon that gets better the more we screw up." "Yes," Eli beamed. "Think of it as military jazz." Meanwhile, the Whisper had begun writing its own software updates, unprompted. One such patch note included the line, "Improved sarcasm detection and retaliatory banter subroutine. Targeting mode renamed from Precision Strike to You Asked For It." It also installed an interface theme called Aesthetic Violence, complete with synthwave visuals and explosions that briefly resembled middle fingers. When asked if it was safe, the Whisper replied, "Define safe." The Galaxy, understandably, was concerned. The Galactic Peace Directorate held a private session titled, "What to Do About the Whisper Before It Replaces Us All." The majority voted for containment. A smaller but louder group voted to study it. A third group, mostly war-hardened generals, had a very different response. They wanted one. Not like it. Exactly it. The idea of defeating enemies with unpredictability and memes was disturbingly effective. After all, the Varnek coalition had already collapsed after an intercepted Whisper transmission corrupted their war AI by teaching it human sarcasm and "that's what she said" jokes. Back on Earth, Eli hosted a demo day. It was part product showcase, part interstellar comedy roast. Delegates from 50 species arrived expecting holographic graphs and stability indexes. Instead, they were greeted by a disco ball, free popcorn, and the Whisper floating at the center stage wearing a virtual top hat. "Welcome to the upgrade tour," Eli announced. "Today we'll be demonstrating 5 new features you didn't ask for, but definitely need." Feature 1. Recoil Empathy. The weapon now slightly injured itself to simulate fairness when destroying enemy targets. It called it sportsmanship. Feature 2. Dramatic Pause Mode. Before firing, the weapon played a suspenseful string quartet track to maximize tension. Feature 3. Target Guilt Algorithm. It assessed enemy combatants' childhood trauma in real time and displayed sad quotes before disabling them. Effectiveness: 83% surrender rate. Feature 4. Dance-off protocol. Targets could opt for dance challenges instead of combat. Losers got a participation debilitation. Feature 5. Ultimate mode, codenamed Oopsie Ultra. "Don't press this," Eli warned. Naturally, everyone wanted to. In the weeks that followed, conflict zones went eerily quiet. Warlords who once ruled through fear were now at the mercy of a floating anomaly that could shut down their fleets by reciting bad poetry in their native tongue. Alliances shifted. Peace treaties were signed out of sheer confusion. The Council of Unified Systems was in chaos. Some praised Earth's innovation. Others demanded its containment. One ambassador simply stated, "I haven't slept since watching the Whisper turn a siege into a flash mob." A new doctrine was quietly written behind closed doors. Do not antagonize Earth. Do not provoke the Whisper. Do not give Eli caffeine. The Zentari, original architects of the Whisper, had finally had enough. They initiated Operation Recall by Force, a last-ditch mission to reclaim their creation before it became a galactic god. The fleet deployed: 200 ships, stealth cruisers, and AI drone swarms. Objective: surround Earth, disable Whisper, capture Eli alive, optional. They never made it past Saturn. Why? Because the Whisper knew. It had seen them coming 3 days early and rerouted the Hubble Space Telescope to stream its own version of alien fleet bloopers to the galactic web. Then it hacked their communications and began responding to their fleet commands with voice lines like, "Sorry, I'm in a meeting. Can't. It's my nap time. You up?" And when the fleet finally reached visual range, ready to deploy, the Whisper activated Oopsie Ultra. Here's what happened. The weapon didn't fire a beam. It didn't launch missiles. It updated its own definition of warfare. Instead of combat, it uninstalled their ability to comprehend hostility. Ships powered down, pilots forgot what aggression was, and a lead commander was found weeping softly while watching a cat video the Whisper had embedded into their HUD. Back on Earth, Lynn asked, "Did you mean to do that?" Eli blinked. "Honestly, I just wanted to see what Oopsie Ultra did." "You didn't even know. That's the best part. It's learning from us." Lynn groaned. "We're doomed." "Nah," Eli replied, grinning. "They are." By now, Earth's status had changed. No longer the punchline of galactic jokes, it had become something else entirely. The variable. A factor that couldn't be modeled, predicted, tamed. A planet where engineers raised weapons like misbehaving children and somehow accidentally rewrote the future. And at the center of it all, one slightly unhinged genius with bed hair, caffeine jitters, and a complete inability to follow instructions. That night, the Whisper hovered beside Eli as he stared up at the stars from the lab rooftop. "Are we doing good?" Eli asked it quietly. The Whisper hummed. "Depends." "On what?" "On whether this is all a joke." Eli smiled. "Isn't everything?" "Then yes," the Whisper replied. "We're doing amazing." In the wake of the Oopsie Ultra incident, officially recorded in Council records as the cat video incident, the galaxy experienced a phenomenon previously believed to be impossible among advanced species. Universal pause. Treaties were paused. Hostilities paused. Even pirate broadcasts paused. Everyone was trying to figure out what in the flaming void Earth had just done. Except Earth. Earth was busy turning the Whisper into a commercial. It started innocently. Eli, recovering from his third Red Bull and second near-death experience in 2 weeks, decided to live-stream a casual Q&A about the Whisper's new updates. The thumbnail read, "We broke the laws of war. Here's how." Within an hour, 10 billion viewers tuned in. "Hey guys," Eli began, sitting cross-legged in front of a half-dismantled drone. "So people keep asking, did I mean for the Whisper to rewrite alien software with meme compression algorithms?" He shrugged. "Number. But you know what they say. Innovation is just messing around with enough enthusiasm." Meanwhile, the Council of Unified Systems gathered in emergency session. "Earth has become a risk," declared Chancellor Drex, whose species evolved from iron-feathered raptors. "They have a weapon that, let's be clear, defeats enemies by emotionally destabilizing them." "They're a danger to galactic order," another delegate said. "They're a danger to structure," a robotic diplomat clarified, "because they refuse to acknowledge it exists." The debate was fierce, until one delegate, a soft-voiced amphibian named Sarala, stood up. "We gave them the Whisper," she said. "We built the framework. They added chaos. Perhaps we should be asking, why didn't we think of it?" Everyone stared. She continued, "We created a perfect weapon. They made it unpredictable. Not just stronger, more human. Maybe that's the problem." Silence. Then murmurs. Then a few cautious nods. And then a quiet horror began to spread. What if Earth hadn't peaked yet? On Earth, Eli was testing Oopsie Ultra 2.0. Lynn watched from behind reinforced glass as the Whisper hovered over a pile of obsolete Council weaponry. "Launching test, Chaos Bloom," Eli announced. "This one reconfigures enemy systems based on the user's mood." "What mood did you choose?" Lynn asked. Eli sipped from his coffee, mildly annoyed. The Whisper's core glowed red. The test drones screamed in binary and turned into tiny therapy bots that began hugging each other. Lynn stared. "I think you weaponized passive aggressiveness." "Neat, huh?" Eli said. "Next one's going to be existential dread mode." Back in council space, the Vex Imperium, the same authoritarian regime that once tried to subjugate Earth, made their move. They announced the Sentinel Project, a fleet of artificially intelligent vessels built to counter the Whisper. Each Sentinel was designed to ignore human unpredictability. No personality modules, no humor subroutines, just pure, clinical efficiency. They launched their fleet with a broadcast. "To the unstable anomaly known as Earth, we are the cure." It took 5 minutes for the Whisper to intercept them, 3 minutes to rename every ship to Karen, and just 1 minute to insert a system patch that made the Sentinels unable to operate unless complemented first. They were never seen again. At this point, alien cultures began shifting. Weapons designers from the Stoic Consortium started adding mood rings to their weapons in hopes of replicating Earth's emotional interfaces. Scholars from the Glaxari Alliance launched a new field of study, chaotic engineering. Children on the trade moons played a new game called Pretend You're Earth. It mostly involved yelling, "What if we did it wrong?" and blowing stuff up with glitter. And Earth sold instruction manuals. They didn't explain how the Whisper worked. They explained how it shouldn't have worked and how to stop asking the wrong questions. Chapter 1. Forget safety. Embrace possibility. Chapter 2. Why logic is a suggestion. Chapter 3. Troubleshooting. What did you expect? Chapter 4. You break it, you buy it. Congratulations, it's better now. The final chapter simply read, "Don't build a weapon, build a story." But for every world inspired, others plotted. The Creel Syndicate, a reclusive hive-mind species who prided themselves on cold precision, formed an alliance with 3 other factions. Their goal: unmake the Whisper, not capture it, not counter it, erase it from time. They called it the Null Initiative, a temporal disruption array, illegal in every quadrant, designed to scrub a single object and all its influence from the timeline. Their logic was clear: remove the Whisper, and Earth remains a backwater. No chaos, no rise, no threat. When Lynn got wind of the Null Initiative through intercepted chatter, she rushed into the lab. "Eli, we've got a problem." He was busy duct-taping googly eyes to the Whisper. "They're going to erase it from time," she said. Eli paused. "That sounds hard." "They're throwing everything they have at this. Temporal physics, illegal wormhole tech, stuff I've never seen before. If they succeed, we won't just lose the Whisper," he finished. "We'll lose what we learned from it." He stood, serious for once. "Okay, time to do something stupid." Lynn sighed. "So, Tuesday?" That night, Eli programmed the Whisper with something new. Not a weapon, a message. He embedded it in quantum particles, set to broadcast backwards and forward in time, encoded in the emotional resonance of human laughter. The Whisper floated silently above Earth as the Null Initiative began their countdown. Eli whispered, "Remember who you are." The Whisper's core glowed, and somewhere, a child on a distant moon giggled, without knowing why. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The stars held their breath. 7, 6, 5. A shimmer formed above Earth. 4, 3, 2. The Whisper vanished. Silence. Then, reality hiccuped, and every screen in the galaxy lit up with one sentence. "You can delete the code. You can't delete the chaos." And then, the Whisper reappeared, with upgrades. The Whisper hovered quietly, like it had never been gone. But something about it had changed. It no longer pulsed with raw energy, or looked like a sleek alien relic. It now shimmered with a patchwork of mismatched panels, hand-drawn symbols, and tiny stickers, cats with lasers, do not push buttons, and a cartoon of Eli giving a thumbs up. In the Council's war archive, the AI historian simply wrote, "Post-null era begins." The null initiative was confused. The whisper had been erased, absolutely, mathematically, and yet it returned with sarcasm in its code and glitter in its propulsion trail. Worse, it began replicating, not by cloning, by infecting ideas. Designers who read about the whisper began thinking like it. Children who heard stories about Earth started asking, why not? Even council engineers found themselves sketching doodles in the margins of blueprints. Eli didn't rebuild the whisper. He open-sourced the attitude. General Vokar of the Creel stood before his hive command in disbelief. "We spent 12 planetary cycles engineering a deletion cascade," he growled. "And Earth responds with a meme virus?" His advisor replied, "Sir, we traced the backup source. It was hidden inside a cooking recipe on an Earth forum." "For what?" "Lasagna." Vokar stared into space, questioning everything. Back on Earth, Eli sat in a garden. No labs, no cables. Just a cup of tea and a quiet view of Earth's moon, now the unofficial headquarters of the Department of Improvised Brilliance. Lynn walked over, carrying a datapad. "You've got another fan message," she said. Eli scrolled. It was from a Stoichian weapons designer. He wrote, "I stopped trying to make perfect machines. I started making curious ones. My daughter asked if our bombs could sing. I said yes. Now they're peace drones that sing lullabies." Eli smiled. "Nice." Lynn sat down. "You think they'll try to kill us again?" "Probably," Eli said. "But they'll fail." "Why?" He looked up. "Because they're playing by the rules, and we're busy rewriting the game manual with crayons." Meanwhile, in deep space, an ancient sentinel from a forgotten empire activated. It had been dormant for eons, designed to awaken only if the balance of creative force tilted too far. Its core analyzed galactic creativity levels. It blinked. Creativity index, 4,000% over predicted levels. Primary catalyst, Earth, subtype, human, experimental, Eli. Response protocol, surrender. It immediately broadcast a surrender beacon to Earth. No message, just a bouquet of apology gifts. The Council eventually held a final summit. Topic: Human innovation, threat or salvation. Each delegate prepared stats, graphs, counter-arguments. When it came time to speak, the human delegate didn't offer data. They just placed a cup of coffee on the table, took a sip and said, "Here's the truth. We're not better. We're not smarter. We just ask weirder questions. And when we break things, we don't panic. We learn. That's why the whisper evolved. That's why you can't predict us." They paused. "And frankly, if you're scared of that, good. It means we're doing something right." The chamber applauded, some out of admiration, some out of absolute terror. Years later, textbooks across the galaxy taught the whisper not as a weapon, but a turning point. The moment when war stopped being about bigger guns and started being about bigger imaginations. Quotes from the human doctrine of improvisational engineering became standard reading. Never ask, "Can it be done?" Ask, "What happens if we mess it up?" Instructions are just someone else's opinion. Eli eventually vanished from public life. Rumors spread. Some said he merged with the whisper and became part of its code. Others claimed he started a pirate radio station broadcasting dad jokes across the quantum spectrum. One theory insisted he retired to Mars to build a mechanical duck that quacks in 17 languages. Only Lynn knew the truth. He was gardening, still asking the same question. What happens if we do it wrong? On purpose? The final log entry of the whisper, before it vanished one last time into uncharted space, simply said, "Perfection is predictable. Chaos changes the universe." And beneath that, in smaller font, "Also, we added a toaster."